Hey folks, it's Brian here. I finally got my group, actually part of my group. We kind of this last couple of sessions decided that if we can get 3 of the 5 players together, we'll go ahead and play because otherwise we'll never get done with Princes of the Apocalypse. So we had 3 of the players make it last night. It's kind of interesting because doing the side quest with the Ice Shield Orcs. And one of the players, that half-orc barbarian, who wants to do single combat with the war chieftain to take over his tribe, wasn't going to be able to make it because he had prom last night. So I actually ran some combats with him on Friday night because I had pictured them coming up to one of the lodges. The lodge war chief is not going to let him go fight the high war chief, you know, all by himself kind of thing. If you can beat me, then you can have a chance kind of thing. So I ran a just, you know, one-on-one combat with him and the war chief, and he actually beat him because the war chief was just rolling really bad. And then I did the one-on-one with the high war chief, which was interesting in that, excuse me, I took the orc war chief template as the baseline, but I went ahead and made this a female half orc and gave her some player levels, just rolling randomly to get some kind of a weird twist on what's going on. I ended up with 2 levels of barbarian and 3 levels of monk. And so I pieced all those, you know, special things together, and she was the 4 elements. So this whole idea with the Prince of Apocalypse, and you know the wind and the fire and the earthquakes and the water elements acting up because of all the stuff that's happening from the temples of elemental evil are affecting things, and tying that into her with the monk of the elements, the way of the monk of the elements, kind of gave her a purpose, that she was the wind and the fire, and that Grummish, in its, you know, cascading all this destruction on the earth, is her guidance for what she needs to be doing, which is why these Ice Shield Orcs are now just rampaging about, not just normal raids and taking stuff. So since there are 4 lodges, I had 4 war chiefs, you know, 1 war chief at each lodge. So we're talking, you know, 1,000 orcs or so from what I was estimating on things that she was in charge of. And plus she had to be able to beat the war chiefs. So that gave her the edge to do that. So we ran the combats, as I mentioned, doing the war chief with the lodge number 1 was not really much of a contest. That he took him down fairly quickly. When we did the competition with the high war chief, Mera, I think is what I had her name from. I did a Google orc name thing, but so she comes out with the spear, not wearing any armor. I go ahead and allow a combination of unarmed combat or unarmed defense, unarmored defense for both the barbarian and the monk, because the barbarian gets his bonus from his constitution because he's rolling with punches, that kind of thing, and the monk is using their wisdom because they're foreseeing how people are going and they're getting out of the way beforehand. So it made sense to me to mix it, and you know, hey, why not? So I did that with her, and the first thing she did was that there's some kind of wind blast thing that she can do. So she did that, 46 damage, but the half orc, you know, made his saves, we took half damage, and I rolled poorly, so it didn't really do much. But with her making 2 attacks with her spear and then throwing an elbow or kicking with a knee, most of the round she was hitting 2 or 3 times. So she ended up taking the half orc down, not in quick order, because it was a long fight. It was like about 10 rounds, if I remember right. With this back and forth, he took her down fairly close. He did the half orc resilience thing where he goes to 0 and then comes back up with 1, and then slash punch, took him down. And then she healed him. She was impressed with how tough she was. So they had a party, and she took him to the party, to the rest of the party when they played. Didn't get a chance to meet back up with him until the next morning. So anyway, Saturday night, the party gets together. They're going to continue on with this whole side quest thing. The elves are with them. The elves do some tracking on these 40 orcs. Well, there weren't 40 left because a lot of them got killed. Try to track them down. They start heading east by southeast. And the elves have had issues with these ice shield orcs before, so they know where those lodges are. And the leader of the elves goes, "Hey, these guys aren't heading back towards one of the lodges. They're heading a different direction. Which way do you guys want to go?" And so they decided that they would head towards one of the lodges instead. So those in the lodge, they start seeing orc scouts popping up and seeing them and stuff. So they come over to this bridge, and there's another 40 odd orcs lined up with an Orog and an Eye of Grumish there in the middle, holding line, because they're obviously tense because there's elves out there, but it's not like the elves are hunting them down, so they're not really sure what's going on. The elves are up on the ridge line. They stop. The Orog and the Eye start coming forward, so the party, or at least a couple members of the party, come forward as well. They meet in the middle and they start talking, and the party's they got like two things going on. One, they're worried about these orcs that are rampaging and burning down ranches and stuff. That needs to stop. Lee Jovashai, who was also not whose player was not present, wanted to do this kind of deal where, hey, we'll get with the farmers and with the town, and we'll get some kind of donation to come out, so that we'll give you a donation, you stop doing all the hate and discontent on everybody. But as they were discussing things, it came out that these 40 orcs that attacked the Delmar Ranch were actually rebels of some sort. And the way that the Orog mentioned, he says, well, the high war chieftain they call the Mother. That's because she's female, the Mother kind of thing, right? So anyway, he's always saying the Mother, and so that's how the players catch on about this kind of thing, and that the Mother is fire and wind, and that there are some who believe that they're following the Mother's guidance by doing these things. But these 40 were actually some kind of renegades off doing their own thing. So they get together and talk, and at one point during the discussion, the half-orc barbarian would burst out with, hey, I'm here to take over the tribe. I'm going to beat this Demutter thing, and you guys are going to help me take down these elemental evilists kind of thing. And he looks at it and goes, if you want to fight Demutter, you need to fight me first. So they circle up, do a ring. They go into the fight, and as I mentioned, the Orc War Chieftain went down fairly quick. So he sent runners off to the High War Chief, who was actually at Lodge number 2 at this time. So the next day, about midday, they see an entourage coming, 200 odd orcs with all this stuff, and these orcs, a squad of orcs, whatever, comes out, and I think they made a ring. I can't remember right now. I believe they started to make a ring. And then there's this double file of 12 Orogs come and split the top part of the circle and open up. Out comes an Orc War Chieftain and an Eye of Grumish, and then the half-orc. And the party's there, and so they have a little discussion on things. And she makes some kind of not insult, but discouraging remarks about the half-orc and that kind of thing to kind of get the fight going. She goes back, has a little prayer word with the Eye of Grumish, at which point she actually drank a potion of Storm Giant Strength, and then comes out. As I mentioned earlier in the fight, that she does this wind thing that didn't do anything, but then she just takes him down. Smack, 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 smack. After all the combat was all over, I realized that I had not been giving her rage bonus, so she would have been doing an extra 4 to 6 points of damage every round based on her 2 or 3 hits she was making. So it would have gone much more quickly with that, in fact. But anyway, after the fight's over, she sends the some of her orcs come out, grab the half orc, take him back to heal him up and that kind of thing. And then she sits down and then has a powwow with the rest of the party. And her perspective is that that Grommash is causing all of this destruction, the earthquakes, the fire, the wind and rains, and the sieging rivers and stuff. That's Grommash. It's time for the world to end, and we are going to usher that occurrence. And with her and this monk thing and the elements and stuff, that she envisions herself as fire and wind, the great apocalypse, and she is spearheading this destruction. The party, in the course of this conversation, lets out something about the cults, the elemental cults, and that they're doing this kind of stuff. And so that takes her off guard, and so she gives them 2 10-day to give her evidence that it's these cultists that are causing destruction and not Grommash. So she's doing a piece now for 10 days, or for 20 days. The party go get evidence, come back, present that to her, and then at that point she'll make her decision on whether she's going to continue with her rampage or not. Well, the party kind of wanted to have, a squad of orcs come with them to help beef them up for fighting these cultists and stuff. They made some rolls. She acquiesced in sending an Orog as her representative to go with the party. So there's an Orog with them. They finish up their discussions. There's a party that night. The next morning, the half-orc barbarian comes out, having been used by the high orc chief and priestess lady. And they start tracking how long is it going to take us to go, because they're thinking, we'll take the Orog, we'll go to the Sigurstone Monastery, and we'll show them what the cultists to do, because that's the only one. Well, it's not the only one, but they know where the temple is, and so they can get them down there where the temple is and that kind of thing, and see if they can't get some evidence of this kind of the cultists causing these problems, not Grommash. And so they figure out how many days they have and how many days they'll take and that kind of thing. And they have plenty of time. I think about 4 days, I think it was, to get to the Sacred Stone Monastery. So they start heading back. Along the way, they run into a caravan, just common immersions, that kind of thing. They had not run into cultists themselves, but had heard about cultists attacking other folks and stuff. They get to Baliard, spend the night. They get to they almost make it to the Sacred Stone Monastery when they run into a random encounter of vampire spawn. Now, I have never run vampire spawn with 5th edition D&D. Now, I've got all the stats and everything printed out on my little spreadsheets and stuff. And so I'm reading through it, trying to familiarize myself with all the special abilities and stuff like that. And the last thing I was reading about was the attacks. They get 2 attacks, either 2 claws or a claw and a bite. And they can, instead of doing damage, do a grapple, which then gives them bonus on the bite thing, right? So, and if they do bite, they do necrotic damage, and that necrotic damage also heals the vampire. Now, one of the first things talked about is regeneration, that these vampire spawn regenerate every round. I completely forgot about that when we got into the fight. The vampire, I've rolled randomly to see which PC the vampire is going to latch onto, because I've got my own perspective on vampires and blood types. And he's going after the druid. Well, the druid throws out that entangling thing, and this vampire, for all he's worth, cannot do a strength save to get untangled from these vines. He must have been sitting there for 6-7 rounds while the assassin's out there shooting arrows at him, and the paladin threw his 5 javelins he had left, and at that point starts picking up rocks to throw rocks. And the monk is just doing his thorn whip at him, right? I wasn't sure about this thorn whip being a magic weapon or not. I could argue with that either way. It's a melee spell attack. That doesn't mean it's a magic weapon, right? So at the point I started thinking, well, maybe that magic whip is a magic weapon. I started treating it as one, but that was towards the end of the combat. So everybody's doing half damage. The thing's got 119 hit points. So he's just sucking up all his damage while he's trying to pull loose from these stupid vines. He finally breaks loose, lunges out after the druid, misses with his first attack, hits with his second, and decides to go with the grapple so he can bite and start sucking his blood and healing himself. And at that point, the paladin does sacred weapon on his sword, so it's now a magic sword. Hits him, does full damage, and that's enough to take him out. Very, very meaningless combat. And it was at that point when it was all over with, and I'm going through looking at experience points, that kind of thing, where I realized I was supposed to regenerate every single round. So I gave them half experience for it, because otherwise it would have dragged on and on this fight. And this vampire may have actually, because the druid turned into a bear at that point, may have sucked that bear dry. Well, lessons learned, right? So anyway, they do. They finish up the fight. They finish the vampire off. The paladin tries to make a religion, makes a religion roll to see if he knows anything about vampires and making sure they're dead kind of thing. And there wasn't anything in the master manual about that. So vampires spawn. When you destroy them, they're destroyed. That's how I handled it. Then they took the vampire to not the monastery. The shoot, what's it called? Sorry, guys. Summit Hall. There we go. Summit Hall, where the paladins are, right? Take a Summit Hall. They stay there. They show the vampire body to the Night Lord there, and she's now concerned. I mean, that's unusual, right? So they spend the night. They got enough experience points for all of them to go up to 5th level at this point. So now the entire party is 5th level, and they then go down to the Barge Right Inn. They get there, nightfall, so they can spend the night there. The next side quest is the Long March, or the Long Road. The Long Road. The Zentarum at the Barge Right Inn are having problems with their connections and things being cut off at Yartar, and they think there's somebody up there messing with stuff. And so they're not getting all of their goods through, and goods aren't coming back, and so they're really concerned. And the players know the head of security there at the Barge Right Inn, and so she represents some of the merchants and shop makers and that stuff in the Barge Right Inn area, and does discussion. Hey, we've got this issue. If you guys can help support us by being extra guards on this caravan we have going north, we'd really appreciate it, kind of thing, and we can pay you. Well, at the same time this is happening, well, actually before that actually happens, the chief of security of the Barge Right Inn grabs Lady Jovashai, pulls her aside, tells her that there was a magical explosion in Waterdeep. Her father is dead. He was killed. Blew the entire house down. And this is actually something we had rolled 3 or 4 sessions ago, because we were just in there before the game started going, talking, and I'm going, I'm going to have this happen. One of the things is retribution, where the cults have one of these elemental bomb things. I forgot what they're called. But they go and bomb something important to the players. Well, the Sacred Stone Monastery had gotten gutted. The air elemental spire, while the cultists were all killed, the knights were not. So that's been partially repopulated. But between the conversations between the princes of the apocalypse and what's been going on the surface, they know it's a party that did this thing with the air cultists. So the air cultists are upset, and they know about Lady Jovashai. They've got contacts down in Red Larch. Find out more about her, because she's been paying with her ring instead of cash. And so there's all kinds of words about this Lady Jovashai, what family she belongs to, and all that kind of stuff. So they send this elemental bomb down to her home, blow it away. We made some rolls, the earthquake stuff. He had 1d6 rounds to get out of the house, didn't make it, ended up dying. So the chief of security tells Lady Jovashai all about this and this whole Zentarum thing. And Lady Jovashai in the back of her head is trying to think, we need to get some more connection with different organizations, and she wanted to hook up with the Zentarum. So this is one of the ways I had help to set this up, where she's got to hook up with the Zentarum now, and they're actually going to support it, because the party was trying to figure out, do we have time to go all the way to Yartar and back and still make the 10-day deadline with the Ice Shield Orcs? And they figure they do. And plus, there was a knight at the Delmar Ranch who was killed, who was from Yartar. And so the paladin took some of his papers and was going to take those to Yartar to his family, explain what happened and that he's dead, and here's what we half kind of deal. But he really wants to go to Yartar anyway. So we got 2 reasons to go to Yartar, and we got 2 reasons to hook up with Zentarum, and so things start rolling. So we start the caravan off. First day gets a red large, no issues. Second day they get to the bog. I forgot what it's called. There's a bog north of the Sumbrian Hills there, where with the way I do distance and time, that's where they end up having to camp. And the encounter for the long road is these bandits do an ambush attack, and then there's a second wave, and then it's interesting. I'm gonna do one video this time. Sorry to be long, but there's a comment here about Haler and his guards are preoccupied by the burning wagon because they need to focus on removing the coin coffers. Fire attracts the monsters in the next encounter. The monsters in the next encounter. What's the next encounter? It's the second attack by the bandits. There's no monster encounter written in. So I just did random night roll, late category, and time rolled until I got a monster. So we're gonna have monsters attack here later on. So anyway, ambush occurs. They launch those fire bolts out. Aloysius is up, and there's one of the elves up all the time. And then there were a couple of PCs that are awake, or a PC and a guard that were awake at the time. Aloysius says, "Hey, we got fire out here!" So everybody starts waking up. The guard rings a bong, kind of thing, and then they launch up 16 fire crossbow bolts into one of the wagons. It's on fire. They do some discussion. I don't really tax them with time on that. I should have, but it was getting late. So they decide they're going to go and do a counterattack on the bandits. And so the party takes off. They go up over the ridge. Aloysius is out in front. He makes some rolls, very good rolls. So he sees where they're hiding out in the bushes and stuff. And at that point, we stop because it's getting late, and we know that there's no way we get done with this combat in time because it was after 11 at that point. We try to stop at midnight on Saturday nights because we all have church in the morning. So that's where we ended that session with getting ready to roll initiative for the counterattack. The air cultists. There's going to be a second air cultist attack from the long road will be later on, and I wrote down what monster it was, but I don't remember now what it is. But they're going to run a couple of random encounters, some ogres and some hill giants before they actually get to Yartar and can finish this thing up. I should have pulled it out. Well, anyway, so I made a monster encounter. It's going to happen in the middle of the night. They were drawn in by this fire. But that'll be after they do the combat with the bandits. Bandits, want to stay alive. They're just trying to inflict some casualties and try and slow the thing down. So we'll see how that goes. There'll be a couple. I imagine there'll be a few rounds, and then the crossbowmen will just start to scatter. And hopefully they'll be able to get away so they can come back later. And they're going to, the way the scenario is written in this, they focus on the cattle, which they give rhinoceros stats, except for the charge. Again, hit points, armor class, that kind of thing. Big bulky creatures. Anyway, so that's where we are now. Our second side quest with a push to get into one of the temples to show this Orog that it is in fact cultists that are doing all this stuff and not Grommash himself. We'll see how it goes. All in all, pretty exciting. Got some good fights in. I got some lessons learned on doing vampires. Next time, it'll be much more deadly. Happy gaming.